Hi everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. And I've been helping people for over 40, close to probably 45 years now. And I have been helping them to learn to self-differentiate using a family systems approach. I help people advance their recovery from codependency, their recovery from narcissistic abuse, their recovery from being adult children of narcissists and adult children of alcoholics. And I work with a lot of families, couples, individuals, and using this deep well of Bowen Family Systems theory. And I'd like you to join my YouTube channel. You can see the subscribe channel. There's also a bell that you can click on also, which means you'll get notifications when there are new videos that come out. And in fact, I've just done a video with Lisa A. Romano, who's a coach, and she deals with codependency and narcissistic abuse. I'd like you to take a look at that on my YouTube channel. We had a great time together. And this program is entitled Overcoming the Role of Scapegoat. I think scapegoating is a very big topic because it is a common experience for many, many people. Now, why do I think there's so many scapegoats? Well, because whenever you have a dysfunctional family, whenever you have a dysfunctional department at the workplace, whenever you have a dysfunctional church, whenever you have a dysfunctional marriage, then oftentimes people will project onto other people the problems they don't want to look at, the problems they don't want to see, and they will pick someone as a scapegoat for those difficulties. Well, that can include an awful lot of people, because I've been scapegoated at a workplace, and I understand scapegoating even beyond family of origin issues. So it can happen for a lot of people. Of course, the word scapegoat comes from like the Leviticus 16, the Old Testament account of when the Levites chose two kid goats. One was to be sacrificed, and one was to take all of the sins of the Israelites and then be sent out into the desert. And then I think William Tyndall was one of the earlier people who coined the word scapegoat. And then it's been used many times thereafter in the more modern era in psychology and in family systems work. Scapegoating is the glue that holds the family together, that holds the church together, that holds the workplace together, that holds the PTA together. Scapegoating is the important thing that holds it together, because the scapegoat is the person that takes all the bad away so that that system can function. But sadly, it then ends up there being a scapegoat. They have a distorted view of themselves. The department, the workplace, the family, the narcissist, the narcissistic family, all have a distorted view of themselves. And so we end up with lots of difficulties as a result of scapegoating. So on the one hand, it provides a solution. On the other hand, it endorses and supports all the problems that are a part of the dysfunctional system. When we're the scapegoat growing up in a family, and we're a child who is a scapegoat, we're not a person, we're not a child, but we then end up being the extensions of our family and the extensions of our parents. We're not us, we're the extensions of them, because they need somewhere for the bad to go. And they can't deal with the bad, the family can't deal with the bad, so we project that onto a scapegoat, and then we have relief. And I remember working in inpatient chemical dependency treatment as the family counselor, And we dealt with all these family roles of lost child, mascot, scapegoat, golden child, codependent or enabler. And we would use all of those. And in fact, I would do a whole family psychodrama with all the families I'd work with so that they could see the different roles that people played. And scapegoating was a very common one. When the alcoholic, for example, doesn't want to deal with the alcoholism, let's say the dad, could be the mother just as easily, but the dad, and then the mom is focused on the dad, and everyone's in denial. There are lots of problems, lots of issues. Then we've got to have a child to focus all of this negative onto, so we don't have to deal with the negative. And then a child starts to act out the role of the scapegoat, the bad one. And then that solves the problem for the family. And they feel much better. The scapegoat doesn't, but the family does. They feel much more relief. Scapegoating is a role which is painful, confusing, and maddening. It's a very difficult role to play in the family, particularly as a child. And then it becomes complicated as an adult too, because we'll carry it on into our adult life. And sometimes we'll wonder, why don't our lives work? Well, we've been a scapegoat since we've been a child. Scapegoat lives are not supposed to work. Same is true when we become an adult. The payoffs for the scapegoat is they receive attention and not neglect. However, and albeit, it's negative attention. Some have said negative attention is better than no attention at all. Though I'm not sure that's always true, because the negative attention the scapegoat gets is very painful, very confusing, and very maddening. The family payoff is it takes the attention away from the problems and away from where the real problem or root problem exists. And so this calms the family down while they send out the scapegoat with all the sins, problems, and projection that's done onto them. And it maintains the homeostasis or the equilibrium or everybody can be stabilized with the family dysfunction. Because when you have an alcoholic dad or an alcoholic mom, it's a lot easier to deal with the kids' bad grades and punish them and talk to the school and go through all that drama, and then to focus on why they might be having bad grades, why they might be having difficulty. It keeps the focus away from the root cause. That's what scapegoatism does. It keeps the focus away from the root cause. The scapegoat, as I believe, is the least powerful member of this system, whether at work, a family, home, church, synagogue, wherever there are organizations. The scapegoat is the least powerful and the most powerful in the family. And you go, oh, no, I was a scapegoat and I never had any power. Well, hold on, let me explain that just a minute. It's they have the least power because they are blamed, criticized, negativized, belittled, abused. And so that's where we have the least power. But the most power, we're very powerful because by being the one, we are the one who is able to cause the most anxiety or upset in the family. Now, it's a hellish life as a scapegoat, but we have the power to trigger everybody. And as I've worked with scapegoats over the many decades, I find they have all this power to trigger these families and trigger families as a scapegoat because they do it all the time, which then they get repercussions. More negative comes their way, and they become entrenched in that scapegoat role. But they do have a large power. They can trigger everybody in the family system, and that's a lot of power. The family, in its dysfunction, gives too much power to the scapegoat. They also give too much power to the golden child, because favoritism and scapegoatism are two sides of the same coin. It's a projection of the good on one and projection of the bad on the other. Any projection can hurt kids. So I've worked with golden children, and they have all kinds of problems because they were projected as the favorite one. Now, I understand they didn't have maybe all of the negatives the scapegoat had, but they have difficulties knowing who they are, what they want in life, what they want to do, because they have lots of guilt, they have lots of performance anxiety, conditional love they've been used to. And so they have problems. And then, of course, the scapegoat has problems with all of the negative attention that they got, the negativism. So why are there so many scapegoats? Well, there's so many scapegoats because there are so many dysfunctional families out there. I'm sure there's a few normal ones. Maybe I'll run into some sometime. But there's so many dysfunctional families. And whenever you have a system that is in pain and they don't deal with it, there's going to be a scapegoat. Well, how many families do you know that have a system in which they have pain, difficulty, struggles, and don't deal with it? Generally, there's going to be a scapegoat that's going to have to be found. And this would be alcoholic homes, drug-addicted homes, narcissistic homes, abusive homes, toxic and unhealthy homes. Whenever there's problems not being dealt with, then they must be projected somewhere else because we're not handling it, we're not dealing with it. Even if it's as simple as someone is clinically depressed in the family, and that can be a biological disease as well as a psychological disease. This biological disease affects the family, but let's say the father doesn't get help for his depression. Well, then somebody's going to have to pay for that underfunctioning. That's going to show up somewhere else. It has to. And then generally there's a scapegoat. Well, you don't love your father. You don't understand your father. Your father's going through a hard time. He's very stressed and he has to do this. And why can't you be good? And then we have all of this scapegoating going on and blaming when really dad isn't getting help for the depression that he needs. He needs that help and he's not getting it. So it's got to show up in other ways. These families need to project onto the scapegoat to stabilize the family. So people ask me, well, why am I chosen to be the scapegoat? Why couldn't it have been Betty, Mary, Steve? Why couldn't it have been one of my other siblings? Why did I get chosen to be a scapegoat? Well, that may be a big mystery. I don't know, and maybe it's beyond my pay grade. But I would guess that it has to do with vulnerability. You are more vulnerable to that. You may have had some problems growing up, as kids will have, but in more healthy families, those problems don't disrupt the family, nor are they a way for the parents to project onto the child who has some problems. So we may have problems, we may have some weaknesses. The child may have characteristics that the parents have, but they cannot accept them or see them in themselves. So they'll project onto the parents. Here's an example. Maybe the child looks like an ex-wife they had. Maybe the child acts like a mother they didn't like. And so we get chosen, not because we are the mother that wasn't liked, but we somehow are projected onto and are seen as the mother they didn't like. And then we get to be the scapegoat. Often the child may be the child that the parent cannot handle. Well, that if the parent's ability to parent is limited, then whoever they're having the most trouble with is going to get to be probably the scapegoat. And maybe the child is just going through their normal child life, and maybe they need a different parenting. But the parents aren't flexible enough, knowledgeable enough, healthy enough to be able to parent them in a healthy way because of their own dysfunction or narcissism or what they grew up when they in their family of origin was a problem. Also, a scapegoat could be someone who questions the family patterns and the dynamics. Mommy, why does Dad drink so much? Why does he come home and is drunk on the floor? Daddy, why does Mom scream all the time at me and put me down? And, well, those are undiscussables. You've now just lifted the skirt of the family, and then they're more likely to be a scapegoat because you're a talker. You're the one that is a truth teller. That could be a real problem in a dysfunctional home. Or even as an adult in a family that you have now, it can be a problem. I was dealing with clients recently in which one person was realizing how much her family was alcoholic, and she had never seen it that severe. Well, now she's uncomfortable with that because she's seeing more. Before she was just tolerating, hey, that's just the way the family is. But it was really inappropriate and really wrong and hard to have the grandkids be around this. But we always just do it because that's what we do. You just tolerate families. Well, no, most of the families in denial because many of them are alcoholic and they don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. And then they'll tell my client, well, you just need to be tolerant. You just need to be tolerant of your family. You just need to accept this is just the way families are. Yeah, but I don't know that I want to be around somebody who is inappropriate or doing lap dances on their boyfriend in front of the young grandchildren. I just don't, that's not okay. And so if you start seeing things in a way that's not okay, then again, that reinforces the scapegoat role. And she was in a scapegoat role for sure growing up. The scapegoats, as I mentioned, can be whistleblower children. We may remind parents of someone they were hurt by or hated or rejected. And certainly, whenever you have narcissistic parents, there must be someone they can shame shed onto. They must find someone who they can shame. And so we have to find a scapegoat who they can do that with. If not all their children, at least someone who's acutely the scapegoat child. Also, when we are the scapegoat and when we have problems, the parent feels in control and powerful. And so for narcissistic homes, we provide that supply for them, the narcissistic supply, as a scapegoat. Why did I get chosen as a scapegoat? We're the easiest target for the manipulation, the self-righteousness, or the aggression. We're just the easiest target. The scapegoat child is the opposite side of the same coin as the golden child. Favoritism versus scapegoatism, as I mentioned. We are the easiest often to gaslight, though we may have trouble with it. And again, if you have trouble with the gaslighting, you're going to get in trouble. You better go along with the program of the gaslighting. We bring out the parent's imperfect parenting, which cannot be tolerated. And if you're the difficult child, then you're bringing out the parent's inadequacy as a parent, or the difficult baby, the unhappy infant that you were. And again, we're not just an infant, we're the unhappy infant. We're not just a child, we're the difficult child. And that becomes a problem. And we start getting scapegoated as the bad kid in the class, or the bad kid in the family, or the bad kid at work. And so many times, those of us who have been scapegoated, we will go to jobs where we end up getting scapegoated in the job. Because what's in us will also be projected, and we'll find that in a work environment. And I've helped a lot of people out of those kinds of environments. And also to change their roles as scapegoats at work, in their families, with marriages, with church organizations, with business organizations. Scapegoats live in the family trance, the family brainwash, the family programming. And we have been programmed to see ourselves as the problem. And that's one of the most insidious lies and one of the most difficult lies there are. And it's what everybody believes, and it's what you're supposed to believe. Let me talk about scapegoat children and scapegoat adults. Often they carry the family pain inside of them, the negative traits that get projected on them, the self-hate, the anger, the denial is all projected onto them. Just like my client I just mentioned, everybody's going, well, why can't you just tolerate what's going on? Why can't you just accept that everybody's drunk and acting like a 14-year-old? Why can't you do that? Because I don't want to, and it seems immature and irresponsible, and especially since there's so much alcoholism in the family, why do I want to do that? And they will go, why are you just being so difficult? What is wrong with you? If we buy into that from our brainwashing and our cult-like existence growing up, then that will become painful and we will be stuck. That's where we need help, or to borrow others' objectivity to see that, wait a minute, that's not okay. The family is not right about that. Many times parents' traumas get projected onto us. Hurts get projected onto us as a scapegoat. And again, everybody's normal but the scapegoat. Everybody's seeing the same, everybody's doing the same thing, thinks the same way, has the same cult-like brainwashing, but the scapegoat. And we then get in trouble for that, and also find ourselves rejected or exiled or sent out into the desert because we can't be accepted. Oh, well, Billy's coming this year. I hope he's not a pain in the butt this year. Meaning telling the truth or being uncomfortable with how mom and dad are so narcissistic or those kinds of things. Scapegoats are objectified and dehumanized. We end up not being a person, we end up being a liar, crazy, too sensitive, dramatic, the difficult baby, as I mentioned, defective, unloving, cold. And all those things are projected onto us when maybe none of them are true. Maybe we have our own imperfections, which I'm sure we do. All of us do. But we end up being seen through those lenses, not as a person. And so what happens is, what I call it is a unipolar view of us, rather than a bipolar view of us. And I'm not talking about the mental illness. I'm talking about when I view someone, I want to see them as good and bad. I hope people will see me as good and bad. Because I'm imperfect, I'm also good. But in the family, the scapegoat is only seen as bad and not good. So it just has unipolar, it just has one pole. And when we have that one pole, then we're immature. We must see others as both good and bad. Now, it's a whole different thing when you start adding narcissism. But I'm saying in general, we want to see people as both good and bad, because all of us are good and bad. The scapegoat is only bad. And the golden child is only good. Both are a distortion and a lie. Scapegoats are also made to totally and solely take responsibility for the relationship or relationships. This is one of the cult-like traits in the family. It's your fault we're not getting along. It's your fault you're causing these troubles. It's all your fault. I'm not doing anything wrong. The scapegoat will always feel as though they're navigating a minefield. When am I going to step on an explosion? When am I going to do the wrong thing? Because the scapegoatism and the projection and the negativity is not done out of rational, a rational thinking process. It just blows up in different ways. It just blows up like standing on a mine. You thought everything was okay, and then all of a sudden you're bad. And you're going, what did I do? What went on? because the family just needs that scapegoat. It's not about reality, it's about what we need. And we need a scapegoat right now, so you're going to get punished. You're going to be seen as negative. I can't deal with my anger, so I'm going to deal with it on you. There are many examples. I think one of the classic ones, which was not necessarily a narcissistic home, but I remember early on when I was doing pastoral counseling, social work, chemical dependency work with clients, that and marriage and family work, a couple brought their daughter to me, and she was like 12-ish, something like that, and she had done some shoplifting. And they said, Jerry, we need you to fix her. She's not doing right. It was wrong what she did, and we can't have her doing this. Well, of course, we don't want her to shoplift. We don't want her to get in trouble. I understand that. But guess what? They dropped her off to me to fix while they went on home. I'm going, well, I thought we might all talk together. And so then I interviewed the couple, and actually interviewed the girl first, finding out her parents' marriage was horrible. Though they acted like they were okay when they talked to me, but it was horrible. They've been talking about divorce. They've been yelling and screaming. They've been, it was just a mess. And then she, out of the need to fulfill the role of a scapegoat to calm down mom and dad so they will feel better, she'll go get in trouble, and then all of the bad traits go out with her. And now they don't have to look at their marriage, their pain, their feelings, their anger, their unhappiness. Now they can focus on the daughter as the one with the problem. And that's a scapegoating within the family. Come to find out, you start helping the couple get better. Isn't it amazing? The shoplifting ends. She starts doing better in school. The parents needed to deal with their stuff so it wouldn't get shifted over to her. And there are many examples I could give of narcissistic families. Not only can we be scapegoated by family members or growing up, we can be scapegoated by friends, the PTO, the PTA, partners, spouses, especially if they're narcissists. And if they're not, we can still get scapegoated. I've talked to many people in which her close grouping of friends have been scapegoating her because they can't deal with a couple of members in their friends group. They can't confront them, so somebody's got to be the bad guy. And she got selected because she's more empathetic, she's more understanding, she's more easily to be gaslit or lied to or believed to be distorting what's going on, when actually it's the friend group that they can't stand up for what they need to do. So we can be scapegoated in a lot of different ways. So let me ask, well, what can we do? First of all, we recognize that we are a scapegoat. And I like Lisa Romano's phrase of, it's not your fault. If you're a scapegoat, it's never your fault. That doesn't mean we haven't played the role of a scapegoat, which then makes sense as to why we're a scapegoat. But that's not the reason you're a scapegoat. You're just acting out that role, much like in a dysfunctional family or an alcoholic family. One of the kids ends up being the bad kid, getting into trouble, starting to use drugs, starting to do these kinds of things, and then he starts feeling like, well, I am a bad guy. Of course, he's already been projected on as the scapegoat, but now he's living out the scapegoat life. And so it even gets harder to see that because I am doing some bad things. So maybe it's just me. It's just me who's doing this. No, it's not you who's doing it. The root of it is having been scapegoated. Deprogramming is very important. Reading about family roles, looking at narcissistic literature about how people are scapegoated by narcissists, deprogramming yourself in terms of learning about codependency, can help tremendously in healing. Stabilize how you see your family. Because when I first talk to people who are scapegoats, they don't have a clear understanding of their family because it's muddy, it's fuzzy, it's hazy, because they're stuck in the family glue. They're stuck in the family enmeshment, and it's just hard to see through that fog that we have and all the programming that we've been programmed with. And so it's hard to see the family clearly. Get help getting to see your family clearly. Then stabilize how you see yourself. That, wait a minute, yeah, I have imperfections, I have faults, I've sinned, I've made mistakes, I've done all those things, but I'm not really deserving of being a scapegoat. I'm really not. And this was wrong, and it wasn't my fault. And this is how I see me. Well, you're not empathetic enough. You don't care enough. You don't care enough, Betty. You're just, why can't you just care about other people once? No, Betty's very caring about other people. It's just she's not caring about them in the way the dysfunctional family wants her to care about them. And so she's bad. But actually, she has much more empathy than the family. Give yourself permission to step away. We do need to get some objectivity. Either step away by stepping into an online coaching program or online therapist office. Step away by getting some objectivity there. Or step away by removing yourself, learning about going no contact or low contact so that you can get your head straight. Refrain from any arguing or defending. It's not going to do you any good for the years of defending and arguing that you have done with the family or with others. It won't change their view, even though we hope it might. Well, that's not how I feel. That's not what I think. No. It's not about the logic of it. It's about what they need you to be. It's not about logical. It's delusional. It's unconscious. It's not about the truth. They're not interested in the truth. They're acting out the pain with you taking on this role. And that helps them to deal with the pain. So just talking them through that so they'll see it often doesn't do much good at all. It only makes you more of a scapegoat. Refrain from trying to change them. You don't want to try to change them. It's only going to frustrate you and reinforce the scapegoat role. Refrain from trying to change yourself to change them. That's only going to reinforce the scapegoat role. And you're also going to be pretzeling and bending yourself so that somehow they will see you differently. My hunch is they're seeing you will shift with every pretzeling or every change you try to make. They will counter it with still seeing you as the scapegoat. We want to change for ourselves, not for them or to convince them that you're not the scapegoat or aren't deserving of it. Get help at seeing what your responsibility is and their responsibility and borrow good objectivity from other people. We haven't been perfect, even dealing with our imperfect family. We can take responsibility for what we have done, and we also know where their responsibility is, and we can decide that for ourselves. And you need help to learn to decide that. And as I mentioned, go low contact or no contact if you're being scapegoated, so you can get yourself straight. Grieve the loss of the family you always wanted, like the normal family you've always wanted. I've always wanted to have a family in which I wasn't the scapegoat. Well, if you keep dreaming about that and yearning and hoping for that, it's only going to get dashed and broken and shoved down your throat. And it's going to become more and more problematic. So grieving that loss of having the family that we want can really help free us inside. Go back and confront and resolve the feelings and events of the scapegoating. Do journaling. Do feelings letter writing, where you write your feelings to that person. Work with a coach or therapist to help you work through that. You will find a lot of freedom doing that and deprogramming from this cult-like trance that we've had in the family. Then also see scapegoating behaviors, if someone's scapegoating you, as what I call Coca-Cola of reality. In other words, when they say, well, you're just so sensitive. Well, you just never understood. I don't know why you can't be more loving. That's the scapegoating derision that comes. And we begin to think of that as, okay, they're calling me a Coca-Cola. That doesn't make any sense because I'm not that. I am loving. I do care. I am empathetic. I do see some of the truth. But they don't want you to believe that or feel that. So they're going to say these delusional things to you that are wrong, but think of them as them calling you a Coca-Cola and how silly it is. Resist scapegoat behavior of underfunctioning or overfunctioning, addictions, anger, depression, hurt. All of these can enhance the role of the scapegoat. People have become mentally ill to fulfill their role as a scapegoat. I know that may sound crazy, but it very much can be. And so we want to help ourselves, get help for ourselves, and not just settle for the negative things that we do or feel, but get help so that we don't continue to fulfill that scapegoat role. Lean on a circle of support. Do the essential work of recovery and self-differentiation, and this provides you with a new or genuine self to move forward with, rather than the scapegoated self. We certainly want to let go of the need for validation, for sure, because we're always yearning for that validation. Let go of the need for it, that, hey, I can let that go. I may feel abandoned. I'll have to deal with my abandonment. But I don't need them to validate me. Because if I'm going to wait for that, you're going to wait for decades and decades and probably forever before that would happen. Because they too much need you to be the scapegoat. They can't validate you. That would mess up the whole Jenga game or whatever they call, where it would all come tumbling down. Jenga, forget what it's called. There's some good books, by Jenny Brown, Growing Yourself Up. Margellus Fjellstad, Fjelstad, and John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. I think that's good for scapegoat folks because we have a lot of shame about being scapegoated. The shame all came to us, and the problems all came to us. He has a great book on shame. There are many others. You can write to me at my YouTube, at my email address. Also to my website, jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. I hope you'll click and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I hope you'll join me on Facebook, Instagram. I put up quotes on Facebook quite often that are challenging and controversial, but also to help you think about these things. That's what I want to do, to challenge people to think about how relationships work. I appreciate you watching today. I hope you have a great day, and be wise.